What's going on, guys? So I know we keep hearing about this big trade that's supposed to be happening for the New York Jets. We've heard all the talk about how motivated Joe Douglas is to make some kind of impactful trade for the franchise and help expedite, the growth of Zach Wilson, build a winning team for the New York Jets. And I think the benchmark for me is going to be if we can there's no way to tie anymore. So if we can realistically hit a winning season, even if we don't make the playoffs for the first time, we'll know we're legitimately on our way to success. So there was some, of course, more rumors / news on the horizon in regards to what this big trade potentially could be. Now, I know as a fan base, all the emotional trauma and the losses that we've had back to back can turn anybody into a Jamal Adams. But I think we don't want to necessarily force anything either. So, there was all of the Robert Woods talk. Let's go get Odell Beckham Jr. Julio Jones gets cut. Let's go grab him. And one after the other, we see these players come off to new teams. And then, of course, with the trade packages that we're seeing, the 6th for Robert Woods, Amari Cooper goes for a 5th and a 6th. And I believe it was really just swapping picks, placements for the two teams. It can get a bit frustrating, but we still need to hold on and sit tight. You've seen Joe Douglas put a lot of work into this roster already with the same formula that while it hasn't brought us, numerous wins, we're seeing better results. We're seeing the caliber of players that are actually excited to come and play for New York again. And we're seeing there be a transition mentally for a lot of stuff. Now, obviously, the wins is really the only thing that matters at the end of the day, but it's going to happen. So here's what's going on with the trade, at least per reports. So it's one of the rare player-for-player swaps, and I have two for you guys. Now, the first one comes via the way of Seattle Seahawks. Now, even though we have got them for the Jamal Adams trade better than they'll probably ever got again, we go back to our roots and we try to make it happen. So this is for the DK Metcalf lovers. Now, with the top of the draft and the way the board plans out, at least if people believe all of the mock drafts and the big boards that are being presented to us, we know it's offensive line heavy at the top. We have Evan Neal, Ika Mekwanu, who both or at least one could be available at pick number 4 for us. We know we also have all of the edge rushers. So with Makai Becht, even though for everything that I've tried to give you guys update-wise for the offseason, with how his workouts have been going, things like that, which, seems like we're closer to getting the Makai Becht of rookie season than the person that we didn't see at all last year. People are still on the, kind of up and down about him. Now, I believe in our tackles, both of them. George Fant, amazing. You don't really have too many people that can step into the left tackle position and perform at the top tier right away like he did. And then Makai Becht, again, it's not a skill issue. It's not a productivity issue. Did he take a step back in a new scheme? Yes. But you have to imagine that if he was able to play for any significant portion of last season, we would have seen dramatic improvements. So it's availability. It's not a skill. It's an availability issue. So if he comes back and everything's great, perfect. Even if he doesn't come back and, light it up like he did his rookie season, if he's just available, you have to imagine worst case scenario, he's an average tackle, which I don't see happening. So short of him catching an injury and we don't see him again, I don't see it being necessarily an immediate red flag. Do we need to still hedge our bet? Yes, the loss to Morgan Moses hurts, but we can still go and get somebody in the draft. We can still go to free agency and maybe find somebody to, give us insurance there. The player-for-player trade would be, for all of the DK Metcalf lovers, swapping Makai Becht for DK Metcalf. It would give us our quote-unquote #1 wide receiver. It would also significantly help out the Seahawks, again, barring nobody being concerned about the injury, which if that's going to be the case, I can't really see the trade happening. But again, DK Metcalf for Makai Becht. It makes sense in the world that they have Dwayne Brown, at least the Seahawks did, currently a free agent. And then, of course, he's, towards the end of his career, if I remember correctly, he's somewhere in like the 37, 38 range. It gives them a dynamic young player still on a rookie contract that they can utilize, and it'll give them by far their best offensive lineman they've had since, maybe losing George Fenton and not realizing what a gem he was. Otherwise, they've had numerous failed experiments. So finally having a stalwart at left tackle to pair up with whoever their new quarterback of the future is going to be puts them ahead of the ball game from a lot of clubs starting to rebuild from scratch. And then, of course, on our end, we get the number one wide receiver everybody's been coveting desperately, and DK Metcalf has been the biggest name out there. There's nothing indicating that he would be available, and in fact, the Seahawks have actually said they're not inclined to trade Lockett or Metcalf at this point. Personally, though, I don't subscribe to that whenever I hear it. Anybody's available for the right price. We heard it with Sam Darnold. We heard it with Jamal Adams. We heard it with, Robbie Anderson. There's numerous players, not just on our team, but across the franchise that general managers have swore up and down they weren't going to get rid of or would double down. And then we see them, be gone within the same couple months. The second trade, though, is a little bit more interesting. So, again, a player-for-player trade. This is between the Jets and the Vikings. So the situation here is that we would pick up Daniel Hunter. This would give us the edge that we desperately want to pair with Carl Lawson. And then again, they get Makai Becht. So if you take a look at the Vikings offensive line, at the tackle spots, they have Christian Darrisaw, who they recently grabbed. And then they have, I want to say his name's Brian O'Neill. Either way, he's not it's not a solid tackle by any means. So this would be an immediate upgrade again, assuming that everybody's comfortable with where Makai Becht is at and will be able to contribute to the team. So again, for us, we don't lose any picks in either of these trades. We get either a number one, supposedly wide receiver, or we get a dominant young pass rush in Daniel Hunter, who we can pair up with Carl Lawson. And the key phrase is young. He's only 26. He's been very dominant in his young season. It'll be a perfect fit in the 4-3 defense that Robert Saleh is looking to run. And then at that point, you can say for either position, wide receiver or edge, which I think anybody would reasonably have those two as 2 out of the 3 top positions we need during this offseason to fill. And boom, there you have it. The picks at number 4 and 10 either immediately can become expendable for us, meaning a trade back for, hopefully numerous picks, or we can stay there, and now we have the luxury that I've been mentioning of literally almost being able to pick and stash a player at pretty much any position we want. We can still double down and grab a Nathan Hutchinson or George Karlaftis or Thibodeau, whoever is available. You can sit at 10, still get your pick of, maybe Hamilton if he's still there. Wide receiver, there still will be edge prospects, I'm sure, like Jermaine Johnson potentially on the board. I know people are loving Walker potentially moving high up in the draft, which I don't see, but still. So it provides us a lot of maneuverability, more so than what we already have. But either way, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on these 2 trades. I'm not the biggest fan of player for player. Generally, there's a clear losing side, at least if people are a little bit more in tune with actually understanding what the player's career arc is like. But I would say the Vikings trade is probably the one that makes a little bit more sense. At least personally, when it comes to wide receiver position, I think we need to develop our own number one wide receiver and let that stick. I know it hasn't happened for us, but we haven't had the internal structure to make something like that feasible. I think we now have that in place. Now, does that help out Zach Wilson immediately? No, but in the long run, being able to say we did it on our own will be much more serviceable than us having to continue to look outside and grab somebody. But that's neither here nor there. Again, let me know what you guys' thoughts are. I'll catch up with you again.